Decide serious. There you go.
Oh. Let me show you. Are you good? Okay, so we've got department heads here to do kind of a brief kind of overview of the budgets that they have prepared as the kind of draft. All that's included in the documentation that you've got tonight. And the kind of presentation is just kind of more like a table of contents. So what we're kind of going, giving you some page numbers. We'll start off with Rachel from the library. If you want to come up here and talk to the podium.
Sounds great.
And we'll just kind of go from there. And
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. I brought a little handout just to give you an overview of some of the things we've been working on in the library, some of our numbers. And I wasn't sure how many, I just grabbed the stack. So I'll start here and we can pass them around.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just to give you an idea of how many card holders we have and visitors we've had so far this year, and different things that we've done to serve the public.
it's just your budget.
But yes, so to the budget, keep it brief. I just figured I'd give you some background. So it looks like our motor vehicle taxes were down according to the proposed revenue. So I tried to shave off where I thought I could. Jumping in, I'm still kind of learning about what the expenditures are currently and what's been done in the past. But I'll say the most important thing for a service organization is our personnel and making sure that our staff has fair wages so we can retain them. So that is really where my focus is with our budget.
Just this detail page.
What's that?
The detail page, is that where you want?
Yeah, that's fine. So, are there any questions at all?
How many full-time employees do you have?
We have 3 full-time. And one of our part-time just switched to full-time, so it might look a little different from the previous year to, or from the current year to 2022.
For the most part, you're just kind of maintaining service levels. I mean,
Right, just trying to maintain what is there and make the most of what we have, and we've really been working on partnering and kind of, like I mentioned, making the most of what resources we have.
I know you've had to shift some resources to curbside, you know, where people will come pick things up like craft kits or whatever. Maybe they didn't do that last year. Have more people started coming into the library, or there's a lot of people utilizing that?
There are definitely more people coming into the library, but we still have people utilizing the curbside resources as well. And I know that there were some questions in the past about PPE costs, cleaning costs, and we've been taking advantage of the county resources that are free to use. So we've been stocking up on those.
How's your summer programs doing, like the tails and the ones like this?
Yes, so we have almost 300 children signed up, and we have almost 70 adults signed up for the summer reading programs. And we've had quite a few attend. We've tried to do a lot of programs that are outdoors, online, what we call hybrid. to kind of give everybody a chance to have access to those. But we've had a lot of good turnout with our story times outside on the square. Our last program we did for adults, we partnered with Mike Kersey and went out to Castle Somerset and did something called Compost-a-Palooza, which is kind of an educational event for people to stop in and learn about some different healthy living practices and different ways to compost. And we had, with all the partnerships we did, we had 77 people come out to that event. So we've had a great turnout.
I think people are happy to be able to go back to the library, go in.
Yes, we've been working hard to try to make it more accessible and open to people.
You know, I'm there all the time.
Yes, yes,
It's one place in town I use a lot, and
it's
the
wonderful.
staff is always very helpful. Ladies just great.
Good, yes,
Always order whatever I need. She's very good. They all are
good.
good staff.
They're wonderful. Yes.
Yes, they are. I do appreciate
Thanks
it.
for sharing.
Anyone else have any questions?
Go to your other meeting.
Yeah, we have a library board meeting, so.
I knew, I asked her, she's going, I was in the library before I came here, and I said, don't you have a board meeting? And she says, I'm going over to the one at the house, then I'll be back to the board meeting. And I went out the front door, and she went out the back, and she beat me. She's a fast walker, I'm slow, I'm not sure.
All right, thank you.
Hello, hello.
Jen?
Hey, just a few things I want to point out. My budget's really pretty simple, but there have been obviously a few affected line items this last year, and I just wanted to touch on a few notes. First of all, we received a wedding marketing grant of about $4,000 in last year in 2020, and we're looking to continue that wedding marketing this year and into next year. We also received a grant from the Patterson Foundation to help out with lost revenue throughout the beginning of the pandemic, as most live performance event centers were hurting. And then we also received a BEAR grant to help out with some east wall repair in our basement level where we had some water damage on our east wall. And we've gotten that repaired, we've done the wedding marketing, and we've used the 5,000 Patterson grant to help offset some of that lost funds from last year. So grants is one way I'm looking at making up for some of the lost revenue from our live performances. We had to cancel so many of last year. Another way I'm looking at doing that is really increasing our rentals. Rentals is more of a guaranteed revenue or more of a consistent revenue than some of the live performance. A live performance show, you could pay $1,000 to bring in a band and hope to sell tickets for $2,000 and make $1,000, but that's rarely the case. A lot of times you hope to break even, or a lot of times you break even, if not lose a little money on some of the live performances. So what I've been concentrating on is getting more rental groups in that will rent out the theater, hold their own show, like a theater show or like a dance show or like a piano concert, bring in their own guests, bring in their own crowd, sell the tickets themselves or sell the tickets at the door themselves and fill the theater that way. And so it's not a risk to us, and but it's more of a guaranteed revenue for us in paying that rental fee. So that's worked out well. And on the line of rentals and increasing our rentals, one exciting thing I wanted to report tonight is that out of the 11 offices we have that we're leasing out there in the community center, currently we have 10 of them filled. And those used to be just empty rooms, as a lot of you know, in that community center, all those rooms around the perimeter of that theater, those used to be just empty old dorm rooms with nothing in them. Over the years, we've worked to fix them up somewhat, add electricity, add heat and air, fix up the floors a little bit, paint some of the walls, make them nice office space, and keep them at a real affordable rate. And little by little, we're getting the word out. And right now, it's about the fullest it's ever been, with 10 out of 11 being used. So that's real exciting.
The top floor is not being used yet, is it?
It's being used for storage.
We all need storage.
Yeah, we had an Eagle Scout do a project up there and make one of the whole east side of the top floor into what is a theater room, where we store set material, we store props, we have scripts, and we have all the clothes for the theater shows up there. He organized those, and he built the hanging racks, and he built the shelves, and did a nice job organizing all that. That was Ben Anderson, who was with the old theater group years ago. So now he's married and moved on, but he did a great job. We've had about 3 or 4 Eagle Scout projects there at the community center.
Chad, well, what do you rent those rooms for?
$150 a month. So our prices can't be beat in the whole county, I believe. They are good prices, and currently we have a stockbroker consultant. We have a theater group. We have 2 of them being used as an art studio. We have one leather craft gentleman. He's using that for some of his leather craft. We have 2 guys that are using one office, and they are in a property development firm. We have one lady from the Department of Revenue using the office, and then another gentleman next to her that's using his office. And to be honest with you, I'm not really sure what he does, but he's involved with our theater group, and he came back to use an office. And he does some computer work, I know that. So, and then we have an office down below with Endless Mercy Baptist Church, and then my office down below as well. So that's going real well right now. And a few other things I want to point out is I'm watching expenses very closely. I'm keeping an eye on the utilities. I'm keeping an eye on the supplies. We're just using bare minimum right now as to what we need to keep up the place. And we've cut back on, like I said, most of our live performances. We have had a few that I've scheduled myself. For example, last year, instead of having 12 children's movies throughout the year, we were only able to offer about 5 or 6. And this year's about the same story. And so offering a full 11 or 12 movies, we got in about 6 movies, and we're going to call it good, but we're trying to attract some other daycares to bring in more kids for those. Last thing I want to point out is just that I'm working on maintaining the upkeep of the building. We have Bob Morrison, who's our custodian there. He works every Monday and Thursday. He does a great job. We're getting projects done, like the east wall that I mentioned, and a few other things, just trying to keep the building up to date and keep it up, keep it clean, nice, and keep it looking good for the public. So, but one thing you'll notice on the budget is that rental revenue, and that's what I was talking about. We went from, about 22,000 down to 15,000. Now I'm looking at bringing it back up to the $25,000 range, and I think that the office rentals will really help that. If you figure out 150 times 12 for each one of those for the whole year, that'll be a big boost if we can just keep them all.
What do you rent the downstairs, the big room for?
Downstairs, we rent for $108 for the day. We rent the smaller room on the north side for $75 for the day. We rent the kitchen out for about $50 a day. That never really rents, but there are occasions where people ask about it, so I have a price ready for them. And then we have the 3 or 4 rooms upstairs with the theater that we rent for $180 for the day. And then the Gilman Green Room, we rent for $40 a day. So those are just a few points I wanted to point out. Over the past year, like I said, we've maintained some of our live performances. We've kept our piano lessons going every Wednesday. We've kept our movies going, tapered it down a bit from about 10 to 6. We've had some dance shows back in December that came in. Theater shows moved back in February. And this summer we've had some more movies, and we've got some more theater shows on the schedule for this fall. And once we're full steam back into it and beyond this pandemic, I think we'll get back to that $25,000 range, if not above that, with rentals. I feel real confident about that. Any questions so far?
I think we all enjoy the community center and the shows that we do have there.
Especially Elvis, right?
Dawn Poor and I, as soon as Elvis comes back.
She loves Elvis. We've met him 2 or 3 times and he does
He's
put on
at the
a good show.
Beginning Theater starting tonight.
Is he?
Yes, he is.
Is that where you're going at?
Jerry Lee Lewis.
But no, we're looking forward to getting back into more of our live performance, and right now it's just kind of a, an idling phase where we're trying out some that will work and that we know will work, but we're really focusing on the rental groups that come in and use the theater for their shows, so they can, I guess in a way, take more of that risk than we are at this time.
Sounds good.
That's about all I have.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for what you do.
I enjoy it.
I know you do. Eric, are you ready for this?
I think so. Don't have much of a choice, do I?
Nope. Here we are.
For the most part, everything's remained pretty flat for us. The 2 main increases that we have are both technology related. One is for body cameras, the other is for dash cameras. So the officers have a camera on their uniform, and they also have a unit in each patrol car. The body camera, the storage fees are what really cost us the most. When we signed the initial contract 5 years ago, the storage fee alone was $5,700 a year. That fee is going up to $74.40 a year. It's an increase that we knew was coming. Axon, they've been warning us a long time that we're basically getting a better deal than we agreed to, and they warned us that we were going to be looking at an increase for storage when that came. This fee also includes the 5 licenses for the administrators of the evidence.com system. So it's about $2,300 of that is just for the software licenses.
Eric, do you have anybody come in and ask about those? Anything on the body cam or want to see it or?
Occasionally, not too often. In the very beginning, people were pretty curious, but it's kind of just an accepted practice at this point. Along with the increase of the storage fees, we're also asking for $4,000 to our enforcement supplies. This is specifically to replace body cameras as they get used. Currently, they're lasting pretty good. We've only replaced batteries I think we've replaced batteries in all of them at this point. But durability-wise, they're all holding up. But they are 5 years old at this point, and it's a necessary piece of equipment at this point, so we want to make sure they're in tip-top shape. So that $4,000 should allow us to upgrade to about 4 per year. This includes some additional accessories and some docking stations that are required. Beyond that, we're asking for an increase of $6,192 annually to replace our dash cameras. Currently, we have a watch guard system. It's treated us very well. We've had it in service for about 7 to 8 years. But it is a hard drive with a downloadable flash drive type system. And it's worked, but the technology is definitely outdated at this point. I believe we purchased the first one in 2013, and they're all identical models at this point. We would like to move to a Axon 3 system, which is actually produced by the same company that does our body cameras, and that will give us multiple options. Most importantly, it'll allow us to do wireless downloads from the field. It's going to save our patrol supervisors a great deal of time in just going to the cars and retrieving flash drives and spending hours trying to download footage, just so we can then copy it onto a DVD to send it to the attorney's office. On top of that, it's also going to sync up with our body cameras. So if a dash camera is activated, it'll automatically activate your body camera and vice versa. Body cameras are great, but that's one of the biggest flaws of them is it requires the human interaction to remember to hit it, and we don't always remember in the heat of battle. It also will activate any camera that comes near that patrol car while it's activated. So if you've got an emergency call and you're going to help your friend, your fellow officer, it's automatically going to activate yours and store it in the same file. And all those timestamps will sync up. So if it's a major use force incident, we will be able to piece each incident together second by second. All 3 camera views will be synced up. So that's going to be very beneficial to us. So mainly with those 2 things, I think it's the body cameras, we need to stay on top of it, but the dash cameras, it's time to get updated with current technology. And that's all I had on the police department side of it. I think I also have the municipal court, if you want to answer any questions on the police department side first.
The employee transfer, is that something that was somewhere else before and it's now been brought to the police department?
I'm still working on that. So that's where I'm trying to make sure that we're accounting for all that, what we're spending for personnel costs all in one place. And we kind of kept those transfers the same pretty much last year as they had been historically. We do have a tax levy in the employee benefits fund that helps offset some of those costs. So I'm trying to balance those. I'd like to be able to reflect the full cost of all these, because you look at all these employee transfers, pretty much in the general fund are all higher than they had been in the past. There's some that were I took away from, shouldn't impact the police, but there's some that were in the water utility and the wastewater utility that really shouldn't be there. We didn't have personnel in that part, like under administration, under water utility, wastewater utility. So some of those are coming back to the general fund. So this is a draft. We're still working on that, but that's roughly the number that we have for for each of these departments. That's the number that we estimate that the retirement, health insurance, all that's going to cost on top of the salaries that we see. So
Where was that in the budget last year?
Well, I think there was more of that was covered in the employee benefits fund than, I think we had some that was taken out of general fund, out of each of the individual funds, but then we used some of that tax levy in the employee benefit fund and then kind of soften that for each of the individual funds. And so I think we might be able to get that so that ultimately for the general fund, if you have to increase your note here, you can decrease that employee benefit, and then it's reflected in the general fund.
I had one other question on our radio system. Is it all up to date now and functional?
It's not in service yet. We're being told, I think July 22nd is our install date for
That's
dispatch.
to have everything back online with the new equipment?
Yeah.
Move on to the municipal court.
As for the municipal court side of it, the only increase that I've included is for the public defenders, the legal services. Last year it was approved for their hourly rate to go from, I believe it's from $45 to $75 an hour. I'm basing a 5% increase off of the numbers through May. About it looks like a 5% shortage, so 5% of that.
That's not refunded, is it, when someone has to leave a public defender? That's not included in the cost, is it? Okay.
There's some fees that are, and some aren't.
Yeah. We've looked at that, but I can't remember how that breakdown is. I think a portion of that we can get back, but not all of it.
way it is. Anyone have any more questions?
I know for a while, the school district, we partner with the school district for the officer that's at the schools. Is that still,
SRO,
is that still a partnership?
Yeah.
Right.
Adam does a good job out there with those kids. He really does. They like him and he does a good job.
Yeah, it's very good establishing those relationships.
That's glad you went back. That was good. All the officers out there around that call, they're right there and take care of business. Thank you. Try not to call. Anyone else has any questions? Okay,
All right, thank you.
you made it. Painful.
It was actually pretty mild. It wasn't even like a grilling session.
No. I didn't grill him. Oh, I'm too tired to grill anybody. You're lucky, Andy.
I'm Andy Martin, I'm the fire chief for Paola. We have a little different situation here. We're not going to have any full-time staff, we're all part-timers. About half of our force of 30 is our career guys up in the city, which is kind of nice. We really recruit for that. And that gives us some added benefit of some training standards that are higher. Our main increases that we were requesting is in the personnel costs. We've always, I think, kind of underfunded that, but since we're call driven, we don't really know what that number is going to be because we get paid by the call. The officers make a little bit of salary, stipend kind of thing, and then they get paid by call. So it's $35 a call. So and then we have, if they do maintenance on the trucks, we'll pay for that. We do it as pays. We did that with Vicky's kind of partnership with Vicky on how to do the pays. And it's easier for her to track it as a single pay. So on the equipment end of it, we're under the quarter cent.
You want to go to that budget, the CIP budget?
Yeah, you want
Okay.
that?
Yep. I just want to
Not
make sure.
too fast. That's kind of the quarter cent fund, for equipment and station upgrades. As we brought up earlier, the radio system, we've been under the 800 radio system with the state for some time. It's worked pretty good for us. It's supposed to get even better with more towers being put into that. We're still dispatched with VHF paging, and we kind of did that by choice because the 800 pagers that are available out there just aren't very good and they're pretty big. So we kind of opted to stay with VHF, and it also gives us the added benefit of being kind of a backup for 800. Rather than having all our eggs in one sheriff's office box, that kind of lets us with the VHF to have something backup. We also requested portable radios. We wanted to replace 3 of these a year. When we bought these, we got a heck of a deal because we bought in with the county and all the fire departments. We bought these for $2,000 a piece for an 800 megahertz radio. That's a pretty good price for a fire radio. Now, by the time we've got to replace these, they're already at $4,500. So, and I think the sheriff paid more for that for the PD radios too. So.
What brand are you using?
We use Kenwood, and we looked at everything. But for the money, it's an advanced for a digital radio, and we couldn't pass it up. It's got all the same functions as Motorola, but it's a lot cheaper. So, they're still a P25 mission critical radio. And we did a lot of research on that, and endless meetings, it seemed like. We'd like to replace some of those, kind of like we do with bunker gear, replace 3 of those a year or so. We're not sure what the lifespan is going to be. We really haven't had too many issues. And my guys can bend a pry bar in a sandbox, so it's amazing that they don't bend more radios. So, we're wanting to kind of get away from electric cords. It's kind of a hazard in our job because you have water, and electric. It's not never a good thing. But the battery stuff's kind of coming. We did that with extrication with the county, and really been pleased with the battery technologies improved with lithium batteries. So they have some new electric fans out there that we use at fire scenes when we have to evacuate smoke and such. We're asking for some blower replacements for battery operated blower replacements. We have an indoor training prop downstairs. I don't know if any of you have ever been down in there. We have a search prop underneath, actually where the old locker rooms were on both sides. We're not really using the girls' side, but the boys' side gets used quite a bit. Matter of fact, like I got a request today from the sheriff's office SWAT team. They go down there and shoot their blank rounds down there. It makes a pretty realistic training for them because they can blacken it out. So it gets used quite a bit. We need to do some upgrades to that. It gets pretty hard use. Some of the doors are gone. I'd also like to, and it was kind of ironic I requested for this because we've been doing some collapse training up until the time of this issue in Florida. And we'd like to build a collapse prop on the girls' side. We've kind of got some ideas of what we could do there. It would be some pretty good training that nobody else has, and for some pretty good price. So we'd like to upgrade that and do some, it's actually building a false floor and then putting all the rubble from all the walls and toilets and all the partitions and everything goes onto that floor. And then you can put a victim underneath that. And then part of it is searching where that victim is and then getting through all the stuff to get to them. The AFFF foam, I don't know if you've seen some of those commercials on TV about AFFF foam, if you've been exposed to AFFF foam. The old foams that we've used for years, they found out that they have PFAs in them. It's a cancer-causing agent. And of course, you get it on you. So the push in the fire service now is to get rid of that stuff. I know the counties include that in theirs. And they'd like to get rid of that older foam for stuff that's not, well, I don't know how hazardous the new stuff is. They said, oh no, it doesn't have that in it, but what else doesn't have it? So hopefully it will be, those are forever chemicals. They last forever, and that's why we like them in foam, because then we don't have storage issues with the foam. We can keep it forever. But on the other side, also looking at a clean burn ring prop addition to our tower. We'd like a paginite line. Paginite's the product that they use. It's like a flame-proof board. Like to do the 3rd floor of the tower and be able to burn. We use clean stuff. It's Excelsior and pallets. Stuff that doesn't make a lot of smoke. We don't really have any high heat training capability here, and that's really hard to get. Now, we don't have a lot of fires, and so how do you train people to deal with that kind of heat? It's until you've been in it, you don't understand it. It changes everything. So we'd like to be able to get them exposed to that without having to travel to the city, 3 folks at a time. So this price was lower than I should have put on there because I couldn't get any prices from them. They're using the whole COVID excuse, which we've heard through the year. So I think that's actually a pretty low ball figure, but they always price way high, so I didn't want to put that big high price in it because like we had Rob George put this tower up for less than half the cost of what they would have charged to put their own tower up. So, but they do make some pretty neat addition stuff that I'd like to add onto that tower and start improving that. Training is a big deal with us. We do a lot of it and we try to keep it, up to date. And I think that's why we have a pretty stable personnel roster. It doesn't flex a lot, and because they get good training here. We've had a lot of comments say, hey, I get better training here than I do up in the city. So
How many firefighters do you have now?
30,
30?
well, 29 in the county. Any questions on?
Do you sell a lot of other departments come down and use the tower?
Yes. It's kind of a recruiting tool for me too. I use it as a recruiting tool, and we get trained. We usually trade training. Like in Olathe, we trade blue card training with Consolidated. Northwest Consolidated comes down. Gardner comes down, District 1. We trade instructors. We can get some good instructors that way. If they hear stuff from the same folks all the time, you got to mix it up. So.
And the thermal imaging cameras you've got on there, are those new or are those replacements?
The thermals, they come in later on as a replacement.
Okay.
That's for, 2022, yes. It's right in that mark here. As they get old, I mean, it's like any electronic device. The picture starts getting a little worse. It's a digital, it's like a digital camera, but it's taking it in thermal. So as they get aged, we got to replace them.
I didn't see it in this package. Are we gonna have a list of equipment, like what fire equipment we have, what police cars we got, and what public works equipment we have? And
we're
the
going to
status of the years and
to
stuff
get
on it?
to get a kind of a MRF schedule, a replacement schedule, so that it's all in one place.
Okay.
I was thinking in 2024.
Yeah, it seems time flies.
Yeah. Jerry replaced that amount of.
Yeah, we bought that when we bought the station. We're kind of trying to shoot for the 15-year now. If you keep stuff over 15 years, parts become an issue, liability becomes an issue. So we'd like to do a 15-year now. And of course, fire trucks are not cheap. Thank goodness for the citizens wanting to support that sales tax, which really gave us the ability to do that. But
Absolutely.
you can see they were out today testing pumps. We kind of partnered with the county to get a better price. We have to do that every year. We have to test the fire pumps. So we partnered with the county and got a decent pump. But every fire truck in the county will be coming here within the next 3 days. So they're all coming here to do it. So.
I saw them out there.
Remind me how high your guys' aerial will reach.
It's a 70-foot. So not super tall, but not short.
It'll reach everything here.
What's that?
It'll reach everything here though. So far,
It's our part, depending on where I park it.
yeah,
It's all about where you park it.
yeah.
I have a hard time with the courthouse
Oh, yeah.
because I can't get real close unless I park in the yard, which with that one, I wouldn't really worry about doing. Some you don't, the real big ones, and I drove one forever at Olathe. I would not set those things up in a yard just because there's so much weight. The truck, this truck's, I think at 25 tons. The one that I drove for 10 years was 35 tons. And that's a lot of weight. So, but yeah, it's a 70-footer. It won't reach the tallest, won't get you on the peaks of some houses because you got setback. If I got 75 feet in the front, just in the yard, I may not make it. But it does give me that aerial water tower capability, which is important. Rather than, if we have to burn one building down, we want to keep it just one, not burn a whole block. So.
Is there any other questions? Good job, Andy. take the big dollars to last. They didn't hear you.
Can we just say no now?
No,
Shortest presentation ever.
no, I like our streets and roads, sir. I think we better not do that.
Please continue.
That's right.
Well, you know, it's been a little bit different the last few years, and we have had several big projects this year, Bass East Extension and the right turn lane. And those will be wrapping up here pretty quick. So next year, really just figuring on going kind of back like we was, where we're doing an overlay and then curb replacement and patching and stuff. We've got a lot of that. We usually we're spending around $450 of $450,000 a year, and that's probably what we're looking at, getting back to that. We're doing the water and wastewater master plan just right now, working on that. And I think that's going to give us some information that is pretty valuable and give us some direction on where we need to go. Our sewers are in bad shape, you know, their water lines are too, but yet we've been replacing water lines and I think staying on top of them pretty good. When we first came here, we had a lot of groundwater and a lot of rusted pipes and stuff. We don't get the calls like we used to on that. And we're not having as many breaks as we used to have either, because we're getting rid of some of those 2-inch lines, some of the 4-inch lines. We did quite a few water projects this year. I'm not planning on as many of those next year. We're going to look at some rehab and sewer, sanitary sewers. We didn't do any of that this year. So we're looking to double that up next year. Maybe get 4,000 or 5,000 feet, depending on the price. You know, that's the other thing that's kind of tough too, is everything's going up. You know, it's just shortages and price increases. And it's just unreal every time we turn around. Prices have gone up. So. We've got a little bit of asphalt we are planning to do this year, but there's just a lot of places that we need to do some patching and overlaying on. A lot of curbs need replaced around town, and that's kind of what I have our guys focusing on, patching, hit it laying down. There's still plenty more out there that needs done.
You're not gonna do any big streets like 2 or 3 blocks here, 2 or 3 blocks there?
Not next year, but that I do want to try to get back like we did last year, where we did 2 blocks out there. We need to continue that.
Yeah, you do.
And with the big projects we had this year, I couldn't get to them, but I will try to get into them in 2023 season, because those are pretty expensive. You know, we've got a lot of areas that need patched, filled, and overlaid, so I'm going to concentrate on that next year and then get back into maybe try to do some complete rebuilds, because we are to the point in this town that a lot of streets we've overlaid to the top of curves. You can't do anything but start over, because the reason they're overlaid is because there wasn't nothing there. And so I can't mill it down and put the curve back in there. Can't raise it up because the yard's on the drain line. So those worked out pretty good on Cash and West Miami.
Yeah,
I'd like to be able to expand on that.
good.
But not next year. We'll move that to
2023?
Yeah.
And there'll be more to do.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a system for graveling the alleys?
We have to get them after every rain. We regrade them and gravel them as needed, yes. And it's a never ending battle every time it rains. And, you know, we don't get just rain anymore. We get downpour every time. And we have to redo the alleys. But the trash trucks travel them and be able to asphalt them and stuff. They've got to have at least 8 inches of asphalt on them, and it's just not feasible to asphalt alleys. We've got to just gravel them. They keep filling up so much too that the drainage is a problem in them too. we are looking at replacing or upgrading the water service truck and the cemetery truck this year. We've got to set it up over a 3-year payment plan on it, both of them, to get it replaced because of the cost of it. But even then, right now, I'm working on pricing them out, having trouble with that, because they say it's a year out, we're getting the truck right now. So,
You gotta order early, don't you?
And that's the only two vehicles you're planning on replacing?
right now, yes. We're leasing the mini excavators, 2 of them, and 2 skid steers and tracking us, rubber tire. We leased the the skid steer and 1 mini excavator in 19, and they were on a mini and the track skid steers on a 5-year lease, and the rubber tire on 4. So, and then we just leased another mini this year, and it'll be on a 5-year lease.
Is there any more questions on streets? I got your number, I call you.
Yeah, I know.
Spend a lot of time on these streets. I do that.
Yeah, all right.
When I bought them out, I think, well, thank you, Kurt.
And on the utilities, kind of trying to hope that the master plans will help drive our CIP planning for that as we go forward, so. So, I guess any questions on what department heads covered? Thought was we kind of move into a conversation about our timeline and then the Senate Bill 13 and that kind of conversation. Said you've got, I realize this is the first time you've seen this. This is draft. I'm still working, like I said, on the that employee expenses transfer and getting that, trying to balance that out with employee benefits and making sure that we're not charging ourselves double for those things. As you go
How
ahead.
come on the cemetery where you've got the full-time salaries in 2021 is 52.4 and 2022 is 54.4 and it was 62 in 2020?
Well, so part of that is probably linked to how, and I'd have to go look at what all was taken out as far as, but we remember we had a lot of people were charged out of multiple funds, and it could have been, that was,
The cemetery?
I don't know. I'm making an assumption that
Okay.
the reason why that was higher then was maybe we charged part of Kirk's salary out of the cemetery too. I've got it all out of streets, because I just rented it in one place.
I think the girls up front were too, because they're
Okay.
in charge of the plots.
Flat
The
rate.
girls up front, part of theirs were too, because they're in charge of the plots.
Oh, right, Marcia, because they were involved in that.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So as you look
Okay.
at 20 and what we did in
Uh-huh.
21 and what we're budgeting for 22, 21 was trying to get all that kind of corrected and to shift it so that if it was,
It
if
actually.
that person, it was just that one person, we got the sexton coming out of that budget. And 22 is further refining that.
Okay.
So
So
no, there is one position that is still split, and it was just because I just couldn't, I probably could have just made the call, but I also felt like it was the one that I felt like it was easy. It was a 50-50 split, and that's our utility superintendent. And they're 50% from water and 50% from sewer.
that's fair.
We have a couple of maintenance workers in that group, but I can charge one full one from this fund and one full one from this fund. That's how I can split that. But the superintendent, I got to split. That's the only one that we've got split.
And they do go together, that makes sense, yeah. Well, I saw that, but I see what you're saying, yeah.
And you're trying to move salary, employee benefits, everything into the fund, but they can.
I'm trying, that's the goal, because then I think that way when we look at our personnel costs in the general fund, we really know what our personnel costs
I
are.
think it makes it look a lot cleaner, makes it easier to read.
And that way it's not someplace else, and is it here or there? It's-
Right, trying to figure out what percentage of who is coming out of what.
Where it's coming from.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then that kind of talks about, and we may talk about that a little bit later too, you know, with last year we moved, mostly it's the sewer we had operational stuff out of Fund 4, and we had operational stuff in Fund 16. Fund 4 was like the distribution, the collection lines, and Fund 16 was the wastewater treatment plant. And so last year when we budgeted, we moved those operational costs to Fund 4, so now they're split between administration, treatment, and collections. And then we turned Fund 16 into the CIP for the sewers. So, and that's reflective in here too. So we're still working on the equipment replacement, that documentation to kind of show what that is, getting that long-term kind of laid out. The employee benefit fund, the bond and interest, the aquatics fund, you don't have that stuff in here. And also you don't have the CIP for the street, because just like we were trying to consolidate the wastewater CIP funds all to one, we're trying to do that with streets. And I don't, it's kind of a mess because we've got these big projects going on from different places, so I gotta get a little more cleaned up on that. But we'll get that eventually.
When you're talking about the swimming pool, how's it doing this year? We always have to transfer in.
Yeah, well, I haven't looked, we really don't have the actuals yet from June. When we get the actuals from June, we'll kind of have a good idea of where we're at. We'll have that by the end of the week. Because I think we maybe had a little bit of expense in May, but I don't remember seeing much in there. So, and it wouldn't be the big cost anyway, it would have just been some getting people started,
Right.
sort of stuff, so.
I think our swimming lessons numbers were up. I don't know about our pool passes, if they were up or not.
I think we were above what we had in 19, but not as high as some of the other years. Were we, last I remember, because we were over 300, right?
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And is there a separate budget fund for the new sales tax? Or is that tracked separately outside?
That's something that I think, one, we need to set up a place for that money to go. I think that's something that I want to kind of talk about through the budget process, is kind of setting up just a park CIP. And so whatever portion that is needed for the park projects, we have a home for it. And we're tracking all the projects that we do. So if it's a pool, I kind of looked at initially, I think I was kind of thinking about potentially that old pool reserve fund, just using that same fund number, kind of renaming it, and then using that as the repository for that sales tax.
And would that be managed the same as the budget, so we have an expected income?
It would look just like Andy's is probably the closest as far as clicking through here. It'll look like this.
Okay.
Where we'll show 5 years of expenses. Out, and we'll show the revenue coming in.
Okay.
Will you put the street stuff in there as well? Or
Yeah, the street CIP will look like that too. I think it was in the budget last year, and just, like I said, kind of getting those projects and getting them all cleaned up, so that we're reflective of what we're doing and what we got done. And we talked about, well, later with the council meeting stuff, we're gonna talk about transferring funds. That's one that we would need to kind of transfer and kind of consolidate. It may be that, as I'm looking at that with Baptiste Extension and the hedge lane, we maybe just spend the money where it's at, and then when we're all done, when those projects are done, then transfer it rather than kind of getting it back. But,
It's kind of a mess right now.
well, yeah, it's just, because we kind of had those projects started, and the idea was, oh, we'll get it all consolidated, but then, you know, we were in the middle of those projects even as the audit was going on, so it was kind of like, okay, maybe we should just
leave it like it is.
take it and maybe do that a little later this year.
Yeah.
So, so tonight we did department presentations. I want to talk a little bit about the Senate Bill 13 and the need. So there's two kind of timelines, if you remember. If you're going to keep on the old track and you're not going to go above your revenue neutral rate, everything's still due by August 25th. The track that if you're going to plan to exceed the revenue neutral rate is that by July 20th, we have to let the county know that, hey, we're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. And then that has another timeline with the ultimate end date of October 1 for the budget to be finalized.
What was that date?
October 1.
But the first date is July 20th, right? We've got
July 20th. So in the budget workshops that the state administration department did, and the conversation amongst the league members and the presentations that they've kind of provided, we probably need to plan on exceeding the revenue neutral rate. That's because, and let me get this, I gotta get switched. So I need to just exit out of this. Okay. Then, sorry, there's probably a better way to do this technology wise, but you know, you're working with me. So I've got a spreadsheet kind of develops to kind of help show why we need to probably go this route.
Shows that you share. If not, we are going to use it.
Okay. Can you let me host?
Yeah.
I'll make sure to get the right page.
Sure want to do this.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Here we go. Just hoping that this would allow me to do. So maybe you can see that a little bit better. So this was, that's way too small, isn't it? So this was our valuation for 2020, $56 million. Valuation June estimate is 61, almost 62 million. So how this works is, this is the mill levy that we charged last year. We charged as a total 43.381. And that generated almost $2.5 million worth of property tax. So then, with the Senate Bill 13, they now say, okay, now we're going to calculate your revenue neutral rate, which is based on, is a mill levy rate. So they said, with the estimated $61,816,612, your new mill max is 39.74 mils. That's if we don't want to have any more, generate any more revenue, we can charge that amount. 39.740. And that number was given to us by Miami County.
And they did that based off of our assessed.
The new assessed valuation based on the revenue that we were estimated to generate as of last year. The concern is if the valuation happens to drop, and I just put 61 million here, it may not even go down that far. We would need 40.269 mils, which is still less mils than we charged last year, but we would need more mils than our revenue neutral rate. And we would be limited by that, even if we want to get the same amount. That's why the concern is you got to go and say you're going to go above the revenue neutral rate so that you can at least, unless you're just like, we'll just take whatever we can get. But I think we're going to need to go that route. That's kind of been my understanding about the recommendation for all municipalities is to do that, just so you can at least generate the same amount that you got last year. Because otherwise,
like you and I talked about in the finance workshop that I went through, they said the same thing.
Yep.
That you're better off to go ahead and declare that you're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate, have your hearing, and then if you don't, there's no harm, no foul. But if you don't hold the hearing and you go above it, the penalties are hefty. You have to pay back everything extra that you earned plus additional money on top of it. So you're better off just to go ahead and say you're going to exceed it, have the additional hearing, and then if you don't exceed it, it's not a big deal. But at least you have the hearing so that if it does drop, you can exceed it and you don't have to worry about it.
It's a pretty good penalty.
Yeah, it's pretty hefty.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
so that's kind of staff recommendation is that we would plan to do that. We would then have a resolution at the meeting on next Tuesday, to formally say that we're going to exceed our revenue neutral rate. And that way then we can let the county know. Now this year, we don't have to have our number dialed in. Next year, at least unless they change the language again, we'll have to know what that rate's going to be by July 20th anyway, which is kind of like, okay, now instead of having August 25th as your timeline, now it's July 20th to have your timeline, and rather than giving you more time, they've given you less time to do the budget, so I don't know if that.
Why would they do that?
Especially because you're waiting on.
That's a good question.
I-
So when do we get the, when do we get,
reasoning?
Why have they done any of this?
Yeah.
well, they said it was for, more openness.
Yeah.
Only,
And more,
Only for
more,
us,
right, more
and
transparency.
keep the taxes from going
Right.
up.
only for our level.
Right. But that doesn't make sense to me. So when do we get the final valuation number from the county?
November,
Sounds right.
it'll be after we would set the
So you're
budget.
just hoping
So
that-
then, but I think what we can do, I think as you go through this, and that's something I've not been clear with the budget questions that I've had, is I think then we can kind of set that dollar amount, and then as long as we voted, we hold the hearing, and if we vote to exceed the revenue neutral rate and say we want to generate 2.6, then that'll be just like the old days, it would set the mill to generate 2.6.
Right, whatever dollar amount that we set.
Whatever that.
So when the valuation gets finalized, it would be.
And it will be November before we find out what your bill is?
I think the final valuations are set in November. Do you remember?
Say again.
The final valuations, when are those due? I'm talking to her because she was.
That's why there's she's a county
That's
clerk.
when the appraiser's supposed to give that to the county clerk September 1st.
When does the county clerk have to give to cities, do you remember? Because there's a little bit of lag in there, because they
When
can.
I left, we didn't have to.
Okay. So,
We did,
right,
but
So you really won't know what your bill is until right before it kicks in.
that whole timeline is so tight that to get those tax statements out, some of them end up being in December and your due date is still the same. So,
if we do that, then we would have, we would, at the August meeting, if we would check the timelines on that, then we would set both those public hearings, the public hearing to exceed the revenue neutral rate and the public hearing to, for the budget. We have to do the one for the revenue neutral rate first, and then we can do them on the same night, we just have to do that one first before we do the budget hearing. And then we would plan on approving and adopting the budget at the September 14th meeting. That would then give us, we could easily get that to the county clerk by September 15th, which I think was their wish timeline, because they wanted to have a little bit of time for the October 1 deadline, so.
But you're saying next year that you have to have all this together by July.
That's the way we understand it now, so we'll be probably talking budget. We'll start January and we'll have March conversation.
And it's not this year, but next year, the county clerk has to submit notifications to all the property owners for the public hearing for our intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. They don't have to do that this year.
That is my understanding, yeah.
So you have to have a public hearing to exceed that revenue neutral, even if you're lowering your mill.
Even if what?
You're lowering your mill.
Yeah, technically, even if you're gonna go above that revenue neutral rate mill, but ultimately still be below what you charged last year, you still have to do that here.
and your strategy is good, to go ahead and declare, go ahead.
Right. That's what I heard, because basically, if you don't do that and you exceed the revenue neutral rate, you have to pay back not only everything you charged above that, but there's a hefty fine on top of that too. And that's why everybody said it doesn't make sense not to declare that you're gonna exceed it.
Well, it's similar in how we budget now in that you don't over budget, but you err on the side of it, this might be more expensive.
Right.
But you can spend less, but you can spend more.
Well, because like he said, even if the bill goes down, if you still charge more than you charged last year, you still gotta have it, still
Right.
gotta have the hearing.
Right.
So.
Well, that's all right. Oh, here he
Well, the good news is you can get them both done in the same night, the budget and the.
There might just be people confused
That
about,
brings up one more point. If you're ever gonna annex into the city, do it early so your county clerk can get that in for when you hold your hearings.
So with that, I guess that if there's a comfort level with doing that, I'm thinking about next steps as far as the budget process as we go. Do we want to have a budget, like a budget only workshop here in a couple of weeks? And we'll kind of fine tune some of these numbers and present that. Do you want to just do that at the August study session?
I would prefer to do it just a budget session only.
Okay.
What did you say, you'd rather have a separate?
I'd rather have a budget hearing separate.
Or budget work session.
Work
Yeah, we'll just do a
Yeah.
section for the budget.
Yeah, for the budget,
As a work study.
yeah.
will we have a lot in August other than if we did it at the August work studies?
Let me look real quick.
I won't be here at the August work session.
Okay, well then let's just try to do it. We'll just, is Tuesday probably about the best night?
That works.
Okay.
I won't be here the rest of the month of July.
Where are you all going here?
Well, I won't be here either.
Well, a week in Tennessee and a week in
You
Washington.
going to Elvis to Memphis?
No, I'm going to Pigeon Forge.
Oh, well, Dolly Parton.
Right now, we don't have a whole lot on the August work session. I mean, other than just what we would cover for the council meeting right now, is what we have on there. So I guess you're not gonna be there, you're not gonna be here the rest of the month. Is there a preference on?
I can work with July, but August would probably be better for me, but I can work around, if July's better for everybody else, I can figure it out.
I should be able to do it.
I go nowhere, so I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, I had to make a reservation 6 months ago.
I have another meeting.
Okay, did that right? I was gonna cancel the meeting.
Real quick.
Will you just tell me when and I'll be here?
Yeah.
How's that for a deal?
So I'll just try to get something here in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Make sure. Just trying to think, maybe the 20th or the 27th, probably.
I'm gone the 27th.
You're good.
I'm here the 20th though.
Okay.
You're just gonna have to pick a date.
Yeah, I'll just make a date.
20th on a Tuesday?
What?
July 20th.
July
I mean,
20th.
July 20th is on
Yeah.
a Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make sure I had enough time to get all the loose ends as much as possible tightened up, so.
So tomorrow.
Yeah.
27th is the one Tuesday I'm gone this year.
Okay.
Just so you know. Another Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah. It's the
Well,
one, it was the one Tuesday between.
I may send out a little email poll to see if maybe we could do a little bit later that week or something.
Don't send me an email, I'll be here.
Yeah, we
You
can
tell
do
me.
it now.
Yeah, send me already an email.
Yeah, no, don't be tracking around, send it to me. Just tell me.
We'll put the budget discussion to bed if that's all right.
I'm going to see Elvis at the dinner theater, I can't
What's that?
That can't be Elvis. I got my Elvis glasses ready to go. I'm not gonna wear my wig though.
We'll talk about council meeting items. And we can kind of go through, some of that's kind of standard stuff, some of it is. Fair board lease, that's basically that lease for the carnival area that they use. Of that, we have that public hearing for 401 East Kaskaskia. We'll have a report with the agenda and we'll talk about potential options and what we want to do with that. We should have the land sale for the industrial park. Paola Beck Clinic is interested in one of the lots out there, so do the similar type of thing that we've done in the past where it's I think we charge $1 and then they get the land and they have to build within 2 years.
Do you know what, where are we at on that one there by Sundance where they was going to?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are still, they're on the clock with their 2 years. They have until December 2022. I think all the COVID and they've had some change in their management. One of the guys retired, and so I think they're just trying to get things figured out as far as supply chain and that kind of stuff, so that they can be ready to go. Everything we've had is still good. They're still they're looking forward to coming here. So
What lot is it? Sorry.
What about the one with the ball cages?
Last I knew, they were waiting. They're getting close to a site plan, aren't they?
We're looking at proposals for their building. That's the last I knew, and that was a couple months ago, so.
He was having a hard time getting people to come back.
What site is the vet clinic?
Between the one that DPI, which is the feed supplement
Right.
group, and then that little
Strip mall.
Okay.
mall.
Okay.
Yeah, on the north side. So they wouldn't be abutting the residential side with the vet clinic.
That would just about fill that in, won't it?
It will. The only thing, after all that, the only thing we really have is that kind of long, narrow one that would be east of the Wickershams, where they're going to build. So that's part of the comp plan I think that's the conversation for the comp plan is where do we want to look for
Future
next?
industrial.
Yeah.
And the vet clinic right now, is that the one in the Park Plaza?
Yes.
Yes.
And they'll move out of there into this?
Yeah. And I think it just gives them a lot more space to do a lot more
They must have
things.
done well here though, because
What?
they haven't been here very long.
They have one in Lewisburg
Lewisburg,
and
yeah.
one in Drexel.
They're doing pretty good.
That's why they're.
Then there's a replat for Burr Oaks, and that's the one that, is it 287? Is that the right street? I think so. It's just south of 287. It's one big lot. They're going to divide it up into 3 lots. Part of that is we don't want to have to maintain that driveway, so that is a private drive. So. Roadway repairs. Kirk's got some quotes on some patchwork for 295th, and then doing a mill and overlay on West Piankashaw, west of from Silver for 2 or 3 blocks west. And we'll have that kind of recommendation for council and for approval of that project. Then the transfer to consolidate funds, it's still, so like I said, with the wastewater and water utilities, on the water side, that's probably the simplest because operationally we had everything consolidated into one fund. From the project CIP wise, capital project wise, we had Fund 15 as the one repository, but we also had money and project price costs out of some different various funds in Fund 90, in that CIP fund. So we're gonna try to get all that consolidated back to just 15. I know one of those funds in 90 is a negative balance because we had the money in there, but we spent money out of that line. So technically the water owes the CIP fund a little bit, so we got to get all that balance out and then have our water CIP. On the sewer side, there's a few things in 90 that we need to consolidate back to Fund 16. But the main thing is taking what we had as operational reserve in 16, moving that to 4, because technically that was with the wastewater treatment's operation, so that we have a little bit more operational reserve in Fund 4. But then taking Fund 31 and 11 are the main ones that they were kind of saving accounts for different water or wastewater and sewer projects, and consolidating that back to 16. So those, we will do a resolution. I think we decided to do one resolution for water and one resolution for wastewater, just to have a table of like, this is going from here to there, so that try to write that as clearly as possible. But that'll kind of hopefully finish that work that we started last year during the budget time and get it kind of finalized. Like I said, we probably will need to do something like that with the street side of things, but we'll probably wait until we get these bigger projects done. That way we're not just shuffling things around. We talked about the budget. American Rescue Plan Act, our allocation for that is over $800,000, and basically we need to, for the U.S. Treasury, we have to sign off on some terms and conditions and this assurance of compliance with civil rights requirements. And so we will do a resolution to formally kind of accept those funds and approve those 2 items. And we did something kind of similar to that when we did the CARES, got the CARES money from the county. We had to do something. So that is about all for what we have on the slate for the council meeting. Any questions?
You had 401 East Kaskaskia on here. Is there nothing to discuss there?
We'll do the public hearing at the meeting, and we'll go through. I think Bill's going to do another inspection yet before we.
They've been working on the house. I mean, is it not meeting up to?
I think there's some questions on the level, the quality of work that's been done.
It needs a lot of work.
Yeah. And it needed a lot of work. So we'll kind of try to line that out so that council has everything in front and we can make that decision. We'll have it basically option-wise to go ahead with the condemnation, or hey, we're going to give you formal time, but I think we really need to have a deadline, but we've already had those, but we'll have that as an option. So,
And then are we still having another executive session
yes.
next month?
Yep. We'll have
Next
executive-
one,
Yep, we'll have an executive session and
next week.
and we'll actually have a couple of items.
Do you have a report on anything going on with sports recreation meeting that you had?
Well, we had an initial meeting and we've got the, so Scott Galupski is a school board member and Matt Meek is superintendent, and Councilman Upshaw and I met, and we got kind of threw some names around and got some people kind of ID'd for being on that task force, and I reached out to them, and they're going to, we've got the task force set up, and Lisa Collier, Jody Garrison, and Lacey Kane are going to serve on that with us. And we're scheduled to meet next Monday is the first first meeting, I know we had some,
Did you say Jody Garrison?
Jody
Used to
Garrison.
be a teacher at the middle school.
Hey, lives on West Miami.
Got a quick question on the Baptiste extension. The concrete that's in front of the business, that's right there at the, close to the intersection, I assume that's parking for the business. Will there be just a line designation, because there won't be a curb or anything, will there be there?
I don't know, I guess I'd have to look at that. I don't know that there's any striping, it would just be like off the street parking. The stalls will be painted, but I don't know if
No, I
there's.
didn't mean striping on their part of it. I meant to designate where the road ends for anybody that's on there.
I don't know that we've got any striping
Outside.
planned on that. I'd have to look at the drawing, I don't remember. And you're talking on the north side of the road.
Correct.
There by DLC.
Right. Well, there's parking that will be on both sides of that road there. That's why I wanted to make sure. But I can check on
They
that.
park below that hill too. They go around and go down and park by the lower level. DLC does. Their buses and that.
That project, I don't know if they did anything today with asphalt, but this week they're going to, I think, finalize the asphalt lifts and get that done. They were hoping to do that last weekend.
Looked like they were getting ready to.
We had weather, so.
They didn't work on this end today, but I don't know what they're doing down on the North Iron Street. But they did not work on this.
That's what it's done.
Donut shop.
There you go.
Donut shop, and
You
then I have to
got
go all the way
straight
down.
shot behind you.
Not that that was just for me, but.
I've never been there. Do they have a pretty good variety?
That's as bad as Harry's house.
Prices, yeah, prices are good too.
Down there by the deer.
I do know that they poured the box culvert on Hedge Lane project, the right turn lane project. I think they were planning on hopefully getting that kind of, taking the forms off Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on the weather, and kind of start proceeding with that a little bit more, so.
Will they be putting up new stoplights there? New ones, or are they gonna use the same stoplights?
That's under advisement with KDOT right now, but I think they're gonna end up having to be replaced because the old ones are, we were gonna do new back plates, but the signal itself is so brittle that they were worried they were gonna break them. We did have to put a new one on the southbound lane, I believe, because the old signal could not be programmed to the new traffic flow. So that'll be updated as well, so.
I have thought, if they could still be used, maybe we could move them down to the entrance going into Walmart there by the bank, put a stoplights there and get rid of that crazy configuration that's there on the Baptiste Drive. You know, where it is.
Well, I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think, they're at Angela Street, is it Angela Street, I think?
I think they opted not to do that because that's
It's
putting
very
the stoplights too close together.
Yeah, you
One
get
up
into-
on there and one on there, so that's why they went with that pork
Yeah.
chop configuration.
Well, if you ever go through there after school.
Oh, you make it.
Well, no, some of the
If
drivers
you
may
can
need
make
to
it
just
through
turn
there
away.
with this whole mess, where all the traffic's funneled up there and you have to make a right turn and you come out of that, let me tell you. You can manage your pork chop if you can get the traffic. Holy cow. I see people driving through that pork chop because they don't know to go down and make a U-turn coming.
Well, no, yeah, it's not a good,
But no, it's not at this time, but when they get that other street open back up, it will straighten out.
It'll help out.
Yeah,
If we were gonna move it, which I know there's so many traffic studies that have to be done, East and Baptiste has nothing.
Yeah.
And we talk about pedestrian traffic there.
east of
East of-
Baptiste.
East is where?
East and Baptiste,
East Street.
Oh.
Baptiste.
oh, no.
I imagine the guy said.
What about it?
I said if you were gonna move it, which I know there has to be a bunch of traffic study and everything, but if you're gonna move it, that would be another
Place.
That's
Yeah,
another,
another
that's
intersection.
the intersection I brought up, just to look at.
You're getting it too close to those, stoplight up there on Baptiste, and you stop traffic that far, you're gonna have it backed up.
Yeah,
But if they're all working at the same,
Well, it doesn't seem to work.
I think there would probably be some,
or a pedestrian, something
Yeah.
there, or something.
and that's something that, I don't know how detailed WSP will be in the comp plan, but I know that they're trying to look at some of that flow as well. I think a lot of times it's how close they are to other signals and volumes, and we probably honestly wouldn't be able to reuse those, even though you could hook them up to electricity and they'd still be green, orange or yellow and red, but you'd have to have back plates for the reflectivity, and that's a whole upgrade that we have for Baptiste.
Well, that's why you have people, because I remember, I'm gonna age myself. I remember when the pendulum light was put in and they put that median in, leave it Angela, and I thought,
not too
why
bad.
do we need a stop lamp put on there? There's nothing down there.
Yeah.
But now look at it.
Yeah.
Because they can foresee all the development out that way.
I
So
think
that's why you love
Walmart,
it.
so I think Walmart paid for those stoplights.
I can remember when
The
they put them
stoplights.
in. It didn't make any sense at the time, and now it does.
2004.
Well, I was so glad when they put in East Street, but you look at it, and most of those times, it's just peak traffic for school.
Yes.
Going and coming, and otherwise you can get through there.
Yeah. For about 3 to 5.
Yeah, you only got about 15 to 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Silver Street, I'm telling you what, there's times you can't get out on that, and I mean, that's off and on all day long.
Mhm.
I know I've gotten where I use Pearl a lot, because just trying to get onto Silver Street is a challenge. And I think a lot of that is coming from that hedge lane out there where it's closed, because people's using the roundabout and coming in on
Oh,
Pearl versus getting off of the highway and using the one lane. So they're coming this way, and that's what's aggravate that traffic on Silver carries a lot of traffic. I'd be interested to see what the traffic count is on there. But right now, I don't think it would be fair until that's over.
Yeah.
anyway.
It's not
It would
accurate.
not be a true picture of what that traffic is out there.
That's all I have for tonight. Any questions or
Oh,
concerns?
are we doing the parade?
Oh.
Passing out on
When is the parade?
28th,
Well, I'm gone.
right?
Of July?
Yes.
So you're going Wednesday too?
I'm gone from Tuesday to Monday.
Where are you going on vacation?
We're going to Florida.
Florida.
I want to get hotter.
Yeah, July 28th.
No kidding, those condos down there. That'd be.
Yeah.
Take a tent.
Yeah.
Well, if she's gone, we won't get left at least.
I left you in good hands.
Might actually get a ride back. Walk all the way.
We had to walk for 2 miles, didn't we?
There was no communication. I just left wondering what happened to all of you.
No,
I
We
told
was-
you
Razor,
didn't leave wondering what happened to us, you just left.
I told Razor you might need a ride.
Told Aaron, yeah. We was just wandering the streets like it was lost.
Oh, that was a mess. That's why we should be left in charge. of the meeting.
I didn't know that was gonna be a problem.
That should have been your training from Dan. Don't leave them in charge of the car.
Yeah, don't just help when you go back to hand out more pool passes, make sure you have the truck keys.
Have a plan. Have a plan. Everybody has to know what the plan is.
So we're on board with doing that this year? I'm gonna get a car.
The 28th?
Mhm.
I could do that. I don't know if I can walk anymore, but I can do.
We were kind of thinking we'd put the pool passes, but we're gonna put the little planning Paola
Oh, yeah.
thing on the backside, so get 2 for 1.
Hey, you guys think you're gonna read that?
I don't know, there's quite a few comments online already with that, so
Good deal.
they keep coming, so.
Good
Are you
deal.
putting the QR code on there?
Yeah. And we do have, that is something, just since, 3 people that might watch this later. We do have the boards for the pool ideas there at the library. So if people are interested, they can go in there and put the green dot or a red dot on things. And we've got laminated cards of 8.5 by 11 that we put to the pool. We got little green dots and little red dots for that too. So they can do that at the pool or at the library. And I think Confluence will be at the farmer's market on Saturday.
Oh, good.
So.
All right. I'm glad we've had, because I think the first week we had, the PD was there at the music
Yeah.
market. And then the library was there last time with the booth.
You do a council booth there.
We good? Duncan council person. Trent,
Can we?
I'll sign Trent up.
Could be a revenue stream.
Oh, no, okay.
You might be surprised, you know? I can do that. I
We
can
go
do
to the
that.
farmer's market.
Let's see, 8 weeks, $1,000 a week.
Oh.
That's all I have.
Okay. Is that everything? We're done.